Have you ever wondered how a simple act of kindness could completely change the course of someone's life? What if I told you that every day for years a billionaire man quietly gave $10 to an elderly woman, and nobody around him even noticed, nobody understood the reason behind it or imagined the impact it would eventually have, but that small gesture was just the beginning of a story that would unfold into something so powerful, so emotional that it would leave anyone watching completely stunned. Today we are going to step into that story to explore every twist, every detail, and every moment that connects these two lives in a way that is both heartwarming and surprising. It all started in the ordinary streets of a city that never sleeps, a place full of people chasing money, chasing success, chasing dreams, yet somehow missing the little moments that matter. The billionaire was a man who appeared to have everything: wealth, power, respect. He moved through life with precision and routine, yet he had this one daily ritual unknown to his colleagues, unknown to his friends, unknown even to his family, that involved a woman who lived in a small modest home at the edge of town, a woman with wrinkles that told the stories of decades, with hands worn from years of work and eyes that had seen far more than most people ever do. Each morning, he would hand her $10, a small envelope placed carefully into her hands, a simple gesture that looked ordinary if you saw it from a distance, and yet it carried a weight far beyond the money itself. The woman would thank him politely, but with a sense of gratitude that came from more than the currency she had received. It was respect, it was acknowledgement, it was recognition of her existence in a world that often ignored her. And the billionaire continued this routine silently, knowing that no one around him would ever understand the meaning behind it. Over time, people started to notice small things. They noticed the woman occasionally walking near his office, quietly disappearing before anyone could approach them, or the way she seemed to carry herself with an air of dignity that suggested she was more than just a woman in need. They saw the billionaire leaving quietly each morning and wondered about the small interaction that lasted barely a minute, yet somehow seemed to matter so much to both of them. But curiosity rarely became conversation, because in that world people are too busy with their own lives to question small acts of kindness, especially when they involve someone wealthy and someone poor. As days turned into months and months into years, the routine became invisible, like a background melody. Nobody paid attention, but the impact was deep, and the story quietly unfolding. The billionaire continued to live his life publicly, achieving milestones, making investments, traveling the world, attending events, yet privately maintaining this connection with the woman, a connection that was simple yet profound. And slowly the woman's life began to change in subtle ways. She had more freedom. She could buy groceries without worry. She could rest without fear of missing a meal. Her dignity restored slowly, piece by piece, not through charity but through consistency, through the quiet presence of someone who truly saw her. Then came the day that no one anticipated, the day of the billionaire's wedding, a lavish affair full of guests, powerful people, celebrities, high society. Yet amidst all the grandeur, the story of the woman and her impact remained hidden, invisible to the crowd, except for the one person who mattered most. Her presence was like a quiet storm ready to break through the ceremony. At the exact moment the routine of the past would collide with the public display of wealth and power that surrounded him, guests arrived and the halls filled with music, laughter, chatter. The billionaire moved through the crowd, greeting people, exchanging pleasantries. And yet in the back of his mind there was a calmness, a subtle anticipation, perhaps unknowingly connected to the woman who had been part of his life quietly for so many years. The camera of his life, so to speak, had always focused on public achievements, on accolades and success, but the real story, the real depth of his character was rooted in this small daily act of connection that had gone unnoticed by everyone else. As the ceremony began, the bride stood radiantly, the decorations shone under soft lighting, the orchestra played subtle melodies, and in that moment, as everyone focused on the glitter and glamour, a shadow moved quietly near the entrance. The woman appeared just as she had many times in the past, unnoticed, yet now carrying a presence that demanded attention, not through force but through quiet authority. She walked slowly with purpose, her eyes fixed on him, and the room seemed to pause for a brief moment, almost like time recognized that something significant was about to happen. He noticed her almost immediately, an instinctive recognition, a tension that neither of them had spoken about for years, yet it hung between them as if every daily exchange had built up to this singular moment. She approached him, and before anyone else could realize, she quietly said something so personal, so unexpected, that it would completely redirect the course of the ceremony. The guests continued to talk, laugh, and sip their drinks, unaware that the real story of the day was quietly taking place in the corner where life had subtly shifted through years of small, consistent choices. Every word she whispered carried weight, every movement, every glance reflected the connection they had developed over the years, a bond built not on grandeur, not on spectacle, but on simple recognition of one human being by another. The billionaire paused, his smile faded slightly as comprehension struck. He remembered every small moment, every glance, every shared silence that had led to this exact point. The wedding was not merely a celebration of love between him and his bride. It had become a mirror reflecting the unseen impact of kindness and attention to those often ignored by society. The crowd remained oblivious, yet the moment was powerful and transformative for him. He stood there listening to her words, realizing the truth that the real wealth of his life had been quietly unfolding in ways he had never fully acknowledged publicly. This simple daily act had accumulated into a presence that could not be ignored, a reminder that even the smallest gestures carry within them the power to shape destinies, to challenge assumptions, and to redefine what matters most in the lives of those we touch. And as the first part of this story closes, the scene is set for the unfolding of deeper revelations, the reactions that will follow, and the ultimate convergence of past actions with present consequences. The billionaire has been forced to confront not his wealth or his achievements, but the real meaning of connection, empathy, and the unspoken dialogue that had existed for years between him and the woman whose life he had quietly touched, and whose presence now carries the weight of years into this singular climactic moment. The guests continue to celebrate, unaware of the storm beneath the surface. The orchestra plays, the laughter continues, and yet for those two people, every small gesture, every whispered exchange from the past is alive in the room, and the story is only beginning to reveal its deeper layers. As the celebration continued around them, the billionaire stood frozen for a brief moment, trying to process what the woman had just whispered. Her words were quiet yet charged with meaning, and suddenly the years of routine kindness, the small envelopes of $10 each day, seemed to converge into a single moment of clarity. It was not just money, it was attention, it was recognition, it was a bond that had been silently forged over time, and he felt a wave of emotions he had never allowed himself to feel in public: anticipation, curiosity, and a strange guilt mingled inside him, and he realized that this quiet woman had witnessed more of his life than anyone else ever had. The guests continued to mingle, oblivious to the tension building quietly near the edge of the room. The woman's eyes did not leave him, and every gesture, every subtle movement seemed calculated yet natural, as if she understood the power of patience. The billionaire tried to regain composure. He smiled, he nodded at the guests, but internally, he was rewinding through every interaction, every glance. Every morning he had handed her the $10, and now the significance of it all hit him like a sudden revelation. He realized the impact was far beyond what he had imagined. The smallest act had accumulated into something irreplaceable. Meanwhile, the woman adjusted her shawl slowly, taking measured steps toward a seat that gave her a clear view of the ceremony, yet kept her presence obvious enough that the billionaire could not ignore it. She watched the people around her with a quiet serenity, observing laughter and conversation while keeping her focus on him. She did not need to raise her voice or demand attention, because the weight of years and consistency created a natural command. She had become more than a part of his life. She had become a silent witness, an anchor to his human side. The billionaire could feel his heart rate increase slightly. He knew that the moment he had always unconsciously anticipated was unfolding now. The room was filled with laughter, music, and celebration, yet for him time had slowed down. He could recall every envelope, every day, every small smile she had given him in return, and it was as if each tiny interaction had been a brick building up to this exact scene. He could almost feel the years pressing down around him, the quiet expectation of a moment that could not be ignored. He took a step back and observed the crowd, realizing how detached everyone was from the real story unfolding in front of them. All these powerful people talking about investments, deals, and future plans, completely oblivious to the human drama quietly resolving itself at the edge of the room. The contrast between public spectacle and private revelation struck him deeply. It was ironic that while everyone chased grandeur and recognition, the most important truth of his life had been quietly shaping itself in silence through the simple exchange of $10 a day. As the ceremony progressed, he noticed subtle changes in the woman's demeanor, a slight tightening of her lips, a glint in her eyes that suggested anticipation and resolve. She had seen enough, she had waited long enough, and now the story was about to unfold fully. Her presence carried a silent authority, and the billionaire knew that the time for reflection had ended. It was time for revelation, time for the culmination of years of unnoticed human connection. And the quiet anticipation built to a near palpable tension around them, even though no one else in the room could feel it. Guests started to glance toward them, sensing a subtle shift in body language, but unable to identify its source. The woman remained poised. She did not need to speak loudly, because her intention was clear and deliberate. The billionaire approached her cautiously, and a hush seemed to form around the edges of his mind, as he prepared to hear the words that had been silently building over years, the whisper that would connect the past, present, and possibly the future in one concise yet powerful exchange. The moment of silence stretched longer than expected. As he leaned slightly toward her, he could feel the weight of every past morning, every subtle smile, every ignored glance pressing down on him. And he realized that the story of his life was intersecting with hers in a way that was both humbling and shocking. He remembered times when he had been self-centered, oblivious to small kindnesses, and suddenly the realization hit him that this woman had known more about the essence of his humanity than anyone else ever would. The whisper came again, her words brief but powerful, cutting through the noise of the celebration like a sharp beam of light through darkness. The billionaire's eyes widened as comprehension and emotion collided within him. He felt a surge of gratitude, humility, and awe for the life he had led and the small choices that had quietly defined it. Every detail seemed to crystallize at that moment: the significance of giving attention, the power of consistency, and the impact of unseen human bonds became unmistakably clear. Even as he processed the whisper, his mind raced through scenarios of what this meant, what the implications were, and how he had perhaps underestimated the subtle power of human connection. He realized that the wedding itself, the bride, the celebration, the wealth were secondary to the raw, unspoken communication between him and the woman that had persisted for years, and now was arriving at its peak moment of revelation and recognition. As part 2 of this story closes, the room continues to buzz with activity, but for the billionaire and the woman a transformation has quietly occurred, a shift in perspective, a deep understanding, and an emotional awakening that neither had anticipated publicly yet had been developing privately for years. The quiet patience of the woman and the unassuming consistency of the billionaire's kindness now converged to set the stage for the ultimate climax, a moment that will not only define their interaction but also challenge everything that those around them assume about success, power, and the significance of small acts. The music in the hall continued to play, yet for the billionaire every note seemed distant, every laugh of the guests seemed muted, because his entire focus was on her. The woman who had quietly been part of his life for years now stood mere steps away, a presence he could no longer ignore. The whisper from earlier still echoed in his mind, every syllable carrying more weight than any fortune he had accumulated all his life. He realized suddenly that the true meaning of what he had been doing for so long was about to reveal itself in a way he had never expected. Guests were beginning to notice subtle tension. He could see curious glances from nearby tables, yet they had no idea of the storm quietly building. The woman looked at him with calm authority, her eyes steady, her posture commanding, and yet not aggressive. She approached slowly but with unmistakable intent. It was as if the years of quiet patience had been calculated to this exact moment. Every small act, every tiny gesture had led to the inevitable confrontation that would change everything between them forever. As she reached him, he leaned slightly closer to hear the words she was about to speak. The entire room continued in oblivion, yet the space around them felt charged, almost electric. Her voice was soft but deliberate, each word carefully measured to convey a truth he had never anticipated. He could feel the weight of it pressing on him like the culmination of every morning he had given her, the $10, every glance, every acknowledgement, every silent interaction now pointed to this exact scene, and the meaning was undeniable. The whisper revealed something neither he nor the audience had expected. She spoke of a connection deeper than money, deeper than routine, deeper than surface gratitude. She revealed knowledge of his past kindnesses and mistakes. She exposed an unexpected truth about herself, about the years she had observed him, and how the impact of his actions had shaped not only her life but the unseen fabric of the community around them. The words were shocking yet enlightening, a twist so subtle yet so profound that he felt both stunned and humbled simultaneously. He stepped back slightly, processing each revelation, his mind racing through memories he had long forgotten or dismissed. The clarity of the moment was overwhelming. He realized that while he had always considered himself generous, the true generosity had not been about the money. It had been about attention, recognition, and human connection. The woman had been the witness, the mirror, and the catalyst for understanding something far larger than wealth or status. The whisper had shifted the entire meaning of their years-long interaction. At this point, the guests started noticing the tension, and curiosity spread like wildfire. Some leaned forward, some whispered to neighbors, yet they could not understand the depth of what was happening. The billionaire's expression changed from confusion to shock to awe. He realized that he was seeing not just a reflection of his own actions but the hidden consequences, the unseen ripples of consistency and empathy that had quietly flowed into the life of someone else. The shock was not in the words alone but in the realization of their power and timing. The woman's eyes met his and held him in place, a silent command that demanded attention. Without raising her voice, she stepped closer and repeated parts of the revelation with subtle emphasis, and the billionaire could feel an internal shift, as if years of ego and routine were melting away, replaced by genuine comprehension and acknowledgement. He understood finally that wealth is meaningless without the human touch that gives it purpose. The twist was not a punishment nor a reward but a reflection of the quiet, enduring truth of their shared history. Suddenly he recognized the significance of every morning every small envelope, every moment of connection, and he could see the elegance in her patience and precision. It was as if she had orchestrated the culmination of these years into this single moment, without drama, without spectacle, yet with a power far beyond any public display of wealth. The shock and twist of the revelation left him speechless, yet internally transformed. The audience, still oblivious, continued to celebrate, unaware that the real story had quietly unfolded before them. As the climax approached, the billionaire realized that his entire understanding of kindness, attention, and human impact had been recalibrated by this one encounter. The twist was complete, not through confrontation, but through revelation. The years of small actions now converged into a single, undeniable truth, and the suspense that had been building over decades and years of routine now reached its apex. The story was poised to move from revelation to resolution, and the next moments would determine how both their lives would intersect visibly and permanently. Even as the ceremony continued, time seemed to slow around the two of them. The woman's quiet power and his internal acknowledgement created a space where everything else faded into the background. The twist was no longer just a secret between them, it was a realization that would change how he viewed himself and the world. He moved through a revelation that would inevitably ripple outward and shape the way he approached relationships, wealth, and human connection forever. The guests, still unaware, carried on with their drinks and laughter, yet the billionaire was anchored in the present. He felt the weight and the shock of what he had just learned. The twist had rewritten the narrative of his life. He understood now that the smallest consistent actions carry consequences far larger than anyone could imagine, and the woman had been the silent architect of that revelation. She had guided him through a path of reflection and recognition that culminated in this exact moment, leaving him stunned and transformed. The moment seemed suspended as the billionaire tried to process everything he had just heard. The whisper, the revelation, the subtle yet powerful twist, all collided in his mind, and for a brief second the world outside the quiet circle around them ceased to exist. The guests continued to mingle, laugh, and raise glasses, but for him time had condensed into a singular point where past, present, and future converged. The weight of years, the significance of small gestures, and the depth of unnoticed human connection pressed upon him in a way he could no longer ignore. The woman remained poised, calm, yet undeniably commanding. Her presence demanded acknowledgement, not by loud proclamation but by the sheer inevitability of truth. She had spoken, and the billionaire could feel an internal transformation taking place, like a shift in gravity. Every pretense, every mask he had worn in public life seemed to fall away, revealing the raw core of a man who had finally grasped the real value of his actions. The realization hit him that wealth alone could never create meaning, but attention, patience, and genuine human regard could shape lives in ways he had never imagined. Guests started to glance in their direction, sensing the subtle tension. Curiosity piqued, yet none could understand the depth of the interaction. The bride noticed the billionaire's distracted gaze and instinctively followed it toward the woman. She saw the moment, a silent exchange so charged that even without words it communicated a story decades in the making. The clarity of what had been quietly unfolding over years became evident, and the emotional gravity was palpable to anyone attuned to subtle human drama. The billionaire stepped forward slowly, carefully, as if approaching the culmination of a long, unseen journey, each step deliberate yet filled with uncertainty. He needed to bridge the past and the present, acknowledge the quiet work of empathy and connection that had silently shaped both their lives. The woman extended her hand, not in a gesture of money or repayment but in recognition of shared history. The small daily acts that had seemed inconsequential now formed a tangible chain of significance, linking their lives irrevocably. As he took her hand, memories flooded back. Each envelope of $10, each small smile, each unacknowledged glance converged into clarity. He realized he had been part of a story far greater than his own ambition, a narrative built on silent respect and